Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. In the previous video we introduced the concept of a polynomial, how to write that, some of the notation as well. What we're going to be doing in this video is a little bit of recap to things we've been doing for years in previous topics. We're going to look at expanding polynomials first and then simplifying these by collecting like terms. Now we'll just head straight into some examples because, as I said, this will sort of double as a bit of a recap lesson on things we've done already. So first question, we've got x cubed outside of x minus 4x squared. Okay, so when we work through these, we remember that there's this little hidden operation between the number outside the brackets and the number inside the brackets. This number outside is actually multiplying by each of the terms on the inside. So if you remember back to binomial expansion, or just any expansion, we take the number out the front, and this is going to multiply by both of the inside terms. And I've just drawn these little arrows to help us make sure we're remembering to multiply both there. Now, first we're going to have our term here, x cubed, multiplied by x. Now, when those two multiply, I'm going to get x to the power of 4. Because this is like saying when I have an x on its own, x to the power of 1. I just have 1x. Now, if we remember from index laws, anytime we are multiplying numbers with the same base, we end up adding the powers. So this is why we have x to the power of 4 over here. Now, if this is new to you, please go back and revisit some of that previous content, because this is assuming that we're quite comfortable with this by now. Okay, now we've got my number x cubed multiplying by negative 4x squared. Now we have to be careful with this negative sign. We've got a positive number on the outside multiplying by a negative, so that is going to give me a negative answer. And I'm going to have my 4, and then my x cubed just multiplies with my x squared. So multiplying those two together is going to give me 4x to the power of 5. In other words, this power of 3 is just going to add to the power of 2, and that's going to give me the power of 5 at the end here. Now, next question, we're going to multiply x squared plus 1 by x cubed minus x plus 1. Okay, so with all of these ones, we remember from binomial expansion, all of my terms have to interact. Now, remember, we're still treating this as a product of these two terms in the brackets. So everything in my left bracket has to multiply with everything in my right bracket. So here's where the arrows can be really useful so we don't get stuck. First, my x squared is going to multiply with the x cubed. Then it's going to multiply by the negative x. Then it's going to multiply by the 1. Now, not only will I have that, my 1 term here has to interact with everything as well. So 1's going to get multiplied by x cubed, it's going to get multiplied by x, and it's going to get multiplied by 1 at the end. So these can get a little bit messy, especially when we start seeing a lot more terms. Like with this bracket, we got 3 terms. It's going to get a little bit messy, so we have to go slowly and carefully as well. So let's do the x squared term first. Right at the start, it's going to multiply with x cubed. So multiplying those together gives me x to the power of 5. Doing the next one, x squared with minus x. We have got a positive and a negative. When those multiply, I'm going to get a negative answer. And x squared times x gives me x cubed. Finally, my x squared is going to multiply by positive 1. And when we times anything by 1, we just get that thing back. So I'm just going to get a positive x squared back. So we've done the first part of it. Now we want to move to this positive 1 term. Now, first of all, it's going to multiply by x to the power of 3. So that gives me positive x to the power of 3. Then we just go down the line basically. the 1 is going to multiply by negative x, which a positive and a negative is going to give me a negative of x. And finally, my positive 1 is going to multiply by positive 1. I just get plus 1 at the very end here. Okay, now that I have that, I want to see if I can simplify. That's the next part of it. Now, to simplify, I want to find like terms. So I'm looking at these algebraic terms here. Are there any that are similar? Now, I can pretty clearly see that, I mean, they all have x in common, but I have 2x cubed here. Now, I have my positive x cubed minus x cubed. Now, I'm subtracting something from itself. So we don't even need to know what x cubed is. We just know that if you take something and you minus the same thing from it, it's going to give me 0. So these two terms here, negative x cubed and positive x cubed, these are going to cancel out. They're just going to cancel out to 0 when we add them through. So I'm left with x to the power of 5. I don't have to worry about the negative x cubed here, so I write just my x squared. I've got minus x plus 1. So now it's a two-step thing. I've expanded first, and then I have simplified the remaining algebraic terms. Now, in the next one, we're going to look at some of this terminology with our polynomials. So I'm going to give you one polynomial here, p of x equals to x squared plus x minus 1. And I have another one, let's call it q of x, which equals, x cubed plus 2x plus 3. Now, I have these two terms here, and my first question asks me to find what is px times q of x. So the only difference here is we're using our polynomial notation here to solve these problems. So, taking p of x, multiplying it by q of x, I basically want to take my two algebraic expressions and multiply them together. So, to write that, because I have multiple terms here, I want to put these in brackets. So I have x squared plus x minus 1. And what the brackets are going to do is they're going to make it very similar to the other questions that we've been doing, which we're going to be more comfortable with by now. So now I have this. I'm going to give myself a tiny bit of room just so I can draw the arrows. This may look a little bit messy, but remember all of my terms here in this bracket, they've got to interact with every term in this bracket. So I'm going to draw my arrows along, just so I remember to multiply each one through. So first my x squared is going to multiply with x cubed, then it's going to multiply by 2x, then it's going to multiply by 3. So my first term here has interacted with each of these. Next, actually, let's just do this one by one because it'll end up being too many arrows. So I want to multiply by x squared by each of these terms. Taking x squared times x cubed, I'm going to get x to the power of 5. X squared times 2x, positive 2x, gives me positive 2x cubed. And finally, x squared times positive 3 gives me positive 3x squared. Okay, so I've done my first bunch now. My x squared has interacted with each term in my second bracket. Now we want to move on to my next term. So I'm going to take this guy here, my x, and have it multiply with each of these. So they're all interacting now, and this is just going to give me one really big expression, which I need to simplify. The hardest part eventually is just going to be simplifying the thing. Okay, so my positive x multiplying by x cubed, that's going to give me positive x to the power of 4. My x is going to multiply with my 2x now, which gives me positive 2x squared. And then finally, my x is going to multiply by 3, which gives me positive 3x. Okay, now we have done the next bit. And as you can kind of notice here, a good way to sense check yourself is I have 3 terms from the first set of multiplications. I have another 3 terms from the next set. So by the time I multiply my -1 through, I'm going to get 9 algebraic terms altogether. Okay, so let's rub this out. We are on to our final part of our expansion. We want my -1 here to multiply by each of these terms. So let's go through it. Now we have to be careful with our signs because my 1 is negative here. First, we want to multiply -1 by x cubed. That's going to give me positive, oh, whoops, sorry. No, it's not. There's a negative. So that's going to give me negative x cubed. Then my -1 is going to multiply by positive 2x, which is going to give me negative 2x squared. And finally, -1 times is with positive 3 to give me negative 3. Okay, so now I have everything kind of written out all the way through here. I've just noticed I've made a mistake. This should be negative 2x, not 2x squared. Okay, now that I have everything, I want to simplify. So to simplify, I need to find my like terms. So I'm going to color coordinate these just so I can find some common ones. Now I can see that I've got an x cubed here, and I've got positive 2x cubed and negative x cubed here. Now I can also find some x squared terms. I've got positive 3x squared and positive 2x squared. And finally, I have positive 3x and negative 2x. So these are the only like terms I have. I want to pair these up now. So with polynomials as well, when we write out our final answer, we want to start with the highest power first. So I've got x to the power of 5 plus x to the power of 4. Those two don't change. Now, I want to move to these in purple. In pink I should say. I've got 2x cubed minus basically x cubed, which is we think of as 1x cubed. So algebra tells us I can work with these like terms. I'm going to minus 1 from 2, and that's just going to give me one lot of x cubed, and it's going to be positive 1. Now I've done those. Now I need to simplify my ones in blue. So I've got 3x squared plus 2x squared. Once again, these are like terms. We can add the coefficients. So this thing's going to give me 5x squared altogether. Okay, and now I've got positive 3x minus 2x. That's just going to give me positive 1x, or just x. And then I'm going to get negative 3 here. Okay, so now I have dealt with all of my like terms, and I have my final simplified expression down the bottom. Alright, we're going to look at one more example based on these two polynomial expressions. So my final one, part B, is I want to find q of x all squared. Now, when we square a number, that's the same. It just means we multiply it by itself. So in essence, we're trying to find q of x times q of x. So I take my polynomial. Q of x is going to be x cubed plus 2x plus 3, and it's squared, so I can just multiply it by itself. Okay, and now we end up doing the same thing. Now I'm going to work through these a little bit quicker. You can pause, draw the arrows, and give it a go yourself, but now that we're getting the hang of it, I'm going to move a little bit quicker. So first of all, we're multiplying my x cubed by everything in the other bracket. So I'm going to get x to the power of 6. Then I'm timesing x cubed by 2x. That's going to give me positive 2x to the power of 4. And timesing that by 3, I get positive 3x cubed. Alright, that's the first one done. Next, we're timesing 2x by x cubed. That gives me positive 2x to the power of 4. Timesing by the next gives me 4x squared. And timesing by the final one by 3, that gives me positive 6x. Okay, almost there. We're going to work with our final term, our 3. Timesing it by that gives me positive 3x cubed. Timesing it by my next term gives me positive 6x. And timesing it by my very last term gives me positive 9. Okay, so once again, I get a really big expression to end with, so I'm going to color coordinate my like terms. So let's go the x to the power of 4. I've got these ones here. I have x to the power of 3. I've got 2 of these here. And I have, finally, 6x with 6x over here. Now, simplifying this algebraically, I get x to the power of 6 plus 4x to the power of 4 plus 6x to the power of 3. Once again, I'm remembering to write these in descending order of my powers. So I start with my highest power and go down. But this is going to simplify to what I have here. So it's just a recap of everything we learned in binomial expansion before, but now we've just got more terms and there's a lot more simplifying we have to do. So the only way it's really going to catch you out is with some of these signs, particularly when we have negatives like we did up here. It can get a little bit confusing, but if you just take your time, work through it, be careful, you will these hopefully won't give you too many issues. But thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.